Hey, it's Drybear. So we finished The Devil and Me, the latest installment in the Dark Pictures Anthology series, and I wanted to give a review of it. I'm going to split the review in two parts, as I usually do. The first part, we're going to talk about it generally and more broadly with no spoilers, and then we'll talk about more details to the game itself in the second half. So let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about it. So I have played all of the Supermassive games, including Until Dawn, thanks to chat. We've played all of the Dark Pictures. We played The Quarry, all of that. So suffice to say, I'm a fan. I really do like these kind of story games that have these branches and decisions. Usually it's very high fidelity. Sometimes, you know, there's definitely criticisms to be made about eye placement, mouth movement, overall like realism. But I think that's not an easy thing to get right when it comes to video games in general. So first, let's go over how I felt about the game at a high level without any story spoilers, and then we'll get into details about the game after that. So I would say overall, the game was really good, comma. It definitely, it felt like it could have used some, like a couple more cycles of QA time. Given that these are very highly immersive games that you want to get into and everything feels like, you know, it's very important and you want to be in the story. There were, you know, I call it like the bug line. Every game has bugs. There's like this bug line that in my mind that exists. As long as you're below the bug line, like there's occasional bugs and they're rather minor. It's the same as, you know, the game being perfect to me. But they were definitely above the bug line, especially for an immersive game like this. There were plenty of times where characters would get stuck, teleport, blink, go through walls, you know, change their animation sets, things would fall out, the camera wasn't in the right spot. There were points where characters would get stuck in poses that kind of brought me out of the game. So I would say if you're someone that's looking to play the Dark Pictures game, you like the Dark Pictures game, it might be worth, if you're not in a hurry, just getting the game after a little bit. You want to probably give them time to maybe do some updates on it to clean up some of the issues. And that's what I'd say about the stability of it. Performance was okay. Overall, I didn't have any issues with performance. I know there's some people that did, but I didn't have any issues with performance. It's just mostly just graphical issues and general gameplay errors that made it kind of weird. And even just some of the feeling moments. There were times where inputs on screen would change at really awkward times, like not where you'd expect them to change or appear or pop up. Like they were just, sometimes there's just some pacing things that were going on that kind of took you out of the game a little bit. So that would be like my first criticism of the game, is that, you know, it definitely needed a little bit more QA time to clean up exactly what you're looking for. The next thing is the decisions. To me, it's like the storytelling and the decision making are what make these games really interesting. Now, the story itself was really cool. Without giving anything away, the general idea is that you are in this Saw-like situation, right? Where you are fighting for your life, you're in traps, you don't know how much is going on, you're lured to this island, and bad things start happening, and you have to try and figure your way out. You're this film crew. And then obviously, like all Dark Pictures Supermassive games, you have these situations where you have to make a decision. You don't have all the information, you might have premonitions, you have to make a decision that allows you to decide what you're going to do, and it has consequences and it has issues and it has results that may impact you and the characters on screen. And I think there were some in the game that were really, really, really cool. And there were some of the game that felt, compared to some other games, like almost like Man of Medan and some of the choices you made in Little Hope, that felt a little arbitrary. Like it just felt like your other choices didn't matter. All that mattered was this one choice. And if you made the wrong one, someone died, or it didn't really come out the way that you thought it would. Which to me, not like Until Dawn did that really well. I would say The Quarry did that really well. House of Ashes did that really well. And then, you know, I would even say like Little Hope and Man of Medan most of the time did that really well. But this one, I feel like some of the choices just felt very linear. It was an illusion of choice. There wasn't a lot of choices. Some of them were really cool and interesting, and you wanted to see what happened. But I think, you know, I just wish there was a little bit more care taken in the decisions that were made in the thing. Yeah, also, like, there were things that didn't seem to matter all that much. Like, why do we have this new currency? I guess you can use it after the fact, like the little baubles that you collected didn't really make much difference in the run itself. It was a new mechanic. They had a couple new mechanics that other games didn't have, like holding behind cover that didn't exist before, and some cool things in there. But that would be my overall general thought of it. I think the storyline is cool. They took a different turn, and that this is based on real events. It's based on a real serial killer, and the ideas surrounding that. Some people may have a negative reaction to that. Some may have a positive. I think it's definitely very creepy. The setting was good. The story overall was really cool. And if you're willing to kind of get into it and you know the choices, I just think that yeah, some the first time playthrough, the choices feel a little limited and restrictive, and feel a little bit worse for wear. But maybe like as you go along, you start to understand things. It makes sense. But now let's go into more details. So if you just wanted the non-spoiler version, then you can jump out now. But let's jump into specifics. Let's you know, spoiler warning on screen. There you go. And now let's get into it. I would say the idea was really cool. It felt Saw-like. And there's actually elements where they felt like they were trying to make it Saw-like, in that, like, towards the end when people died, you know, Mark had to overcome his fear of heights towards the end. Charlie had to overcome his own narcissism, and one of the ways he could die was being smoked out in a room because he's a smoker. So like the idea that Saw and Cube and all of those horror movies of like bringing their worst nightmares to life and making them overcome them or losing their life in the process kind of was there, which is really cool. I think that the characters overall, they started out kind of bland. There was like maybe like one or two of them, like Aaron had personality right from the get-go. I would say the others were a little slow to start in revealing who they were and like what their personality was and what they were after. And maybe, I don't know, like maybe like I felt like in the other games it was easier for me to get involved with the characters and their journey than in this one, where I was really interested in the island. I was really interested in what was happening. I was really interested in the killer, but I was less interested in their show and their crew and their monetary problems and their and their like dreams and hopes and aspirations for future careers and things like that. Like some of that stuff just it didn't really stick with me as much. It felt like they would just like pop in and out of their character. I would say the only one that held it the whole time was probably Erin. Erin always had that fear going on. She always had the courage and the caring for others. She always had the breathing problems, and you know, she seemed to be very consistent. Mark was kind of consistent. They played up this fear of heights, and then sometimes you would just towards the end, if you kept him alive, you would jump across these like huge cliffs, and he would like only be scared of heights occasionally. Like he would walk across a plank over like a 50-foot drop just fine. And then like 20 minutes later, he'd be like, oh my God, this 10-foot drop is terrifying. I'm so scared. So I feel like the consistency wasn't really all there as much. And oh my God, some of the choices felt like, the first one that I got was Aaron. So Aaron was the first one that I killed. Rip Aaron. But the choice felt so arbitrary. Usually in these games, they do a really good job of foreshadowing, giving you premonitions if you find them. And then you have this like really like interesting choice of like, should I decide to do this or that, or what does this lead to? Should I use common sense or should I use the character? But when Erin died, where she was having an asthma attack, she's trapped in the room with the killer. We had a premonition that said she dies in that room with the killer. And so the killer comes up and says, here's your inhaler. You have a choice to make. Attack him or take the inhaler. That choice kills her or saves her. None of the other choices that you made up to that point seemed to make any difference. None of her character flaws or involvement in the story. There wasn't any foreshadowing other. It's just when the killer stepped in the room, and the way I thought about it was that killer kills you. So don't trust him right away. Just fight back and try to get away, right? Don't let him get close enough to stab you. Try to injure him and run. So I did that, and that's the choice that kills her. So I felt very betrayed. I was like, okay, either you take the inhaler and she lives, or you fight back and she dies, and that's it. There's actually some cool scenes afterwards that I didn't get to see involving Erin, but she was already dead. And there's also choices where like Charlie in the Inferno room kind of made sense, right? Because they started out where the door was open. He tried to reach the door when he's doing in the furnace. He couldn't reach the handle. I found out later there was a premonition that shows him getting stuck in the door. But in my mind, he had already tried to open the door. He had already tried to reach for the handle. He couldn't do it. The door is already shut and locked and reinforced. You may as well just go for your other option, which is the grate, which shows him kind of dying, but then he survives and all that. So I think there was definitely some cool, better decisions there. One of the gripes that I had about the game also was I feel like some of the things that they did for atmosphere and for horror were a little too on the nose and repetitive. So like when you have this open-ended segment with Kate, Mark, and Jamie, and you're going through the old pool house, the old spa, like every 3 minutes, occasionally it'll show a camera watching you guys from the corner. And it's like they really wanted to send home the point that the killer's watching you. And they just kept reminding you of this. Oh, he's here. Oh, he's over there. Oh, he's looking at you. Oh, he sees you. Oh, he knows where you are. Oh. And it's just like, okay, we get it. I get it. I get it. He's here. He's watching. The characters don't know he's there. I totally get it. And then there's also tons of points where like you're looking down a hallway and then the killer's shadow goes across and it goes whee and screams at you. And it just, they did that like 10 times. And it's like, I get it. The killer's here. And it started like pulling me out of the immersion because it's like, I feel like, okay, every time I round the corner, every time I inspect something, every time I change camera or setting, it's going to remind me that the killer's here watching me from the corner, and he's going to come around the corner, and the characters, the protagonists are going to see him. It just felt like it was very heavy-handed in that aspect. So I just like sometimes it's, and some of the jump scares were really obvious too. So I feel like the core of the game is really good. The story's really cool. But there's just some like misses that made it like lower down. I would say it's probably mid-tier for me. I think I enjoyed it more than Little Hope and more than Man of Medan, but I definitely liked Quarry, House of Ashes, and Until Dawn much more than Devil and Me. But it could be, once they fix it up, maybe it's a much better playthrough. But I think that sometimes it felt a little like your choices were meaningless and it was a little soulless. And you just kind of were walking through a walking simulator. But I think there's definitely some cool points to it. The story's cool, and if you like these games, you'd have a good time. You're gonna see plenty of situations where the game bugs out super hard. This is why I would recommend waiting. So we even just saw one where Charlie just teleported. So this is the scene with the killer. You're in this room, you get a premonition that you know that she dies in this room. So this is the camera bug that I got. Sometimes, occasionally when you're playing, it would like force forward the story without you doing any input. So what happened is that force forward occurred right when I had brought up his camera. So he got stuck in that pose with his camera up. You'll see it right here when it transitions. So it zooms over, forces the story forward right when I bring my camera up, and then he gets stuck in it, and then he just has his camera out for the next like 10 minutes. He's not supposed to have it out here. So he just has it in front of his face as he's walking around, and then he just held it up. So stuff like that just was hilarious, but also kind of immersion break. And even like she's like hiding inside of him now. Did you see that? Like she hit it in, like he went to the wall and she went, like it's just a lot of bugs that made it like she's now like inside his body. Like I don't know. And then he's just holding the camera the whole time. Ridiculous, man. Yeah, the game gets impatient. If you're just standing around, it'll force the story forward. I actually saw some clips of streamers that were, they got up to get water or get food or something, or go to the bathroom. And they came back and there were like game-changing segments that had begun because the story just forced itself forward. So definitely some of that. So yeah, my final conclusion is story's cool. It wasn't the best Supermassive game of the ones chosen. It's probably not the worst either. But definitely if you're not in a rush to get it, wait for the bug fixes, wait for the updates so that it can clean it up a little bit, because it did kind of take away from the experience. I'd put it like probably in the middle of all of them, and just, yeah, there we go. Well, let me know what you think. Did you play the game? Did you like it? Were the things that happened to you? What was your experience like? Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it? Have you played the other games? And so on and so forth. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.